Welcome to my channel. My name is Alesh. So today we are going to be going through how we can use context and in a provider to be able to make our context available globally in our app. So as you can see, I have a single page right here. It's actually doing nothing. I'm just going to pass a context from the use context provider, and we're going to consume it in the component. So basically, without wasting time, I'm actually going to just go. So this is the page that you just saw right now. This is what the code looks like. Nothing big deal going on here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create I'm actually going to create a context. I can say context provided. I'm actually going to create one context, but just in case, if you would like to create your own, you would probably want to put them in a kind of a folder so that it'd be easy for you to reach your context. So in this context provider, I can create a provider for call it, and I can call it pages context. Okay, so I'm gonna call it pages context.tx. So to start with, just like you would create any React component. So in this project, I'm using Next.js TypeScript. Okay, so it has a little bit of difference from the normal React because it's much more easier to create context in React, but this you would see. So the first thing I really want to do is that I want to actually import a, a creator, a context creator that I can use to create my context. So I'm just going to import create context from React, and I can actually um, import use states too because I'm going to need to set some state. So basically, I'm going to then create my context. Actually, I want to export it because I'm going to be using it in other components. So I'm going to create my context. I'm going to call this context pages context. Okay. Then I'm going to actually create it with this create context. In Next.js TypeScript, you would need to define a default value for your context when you are creating it. So I'm just going to say const default oh, default values equals it's going to take an object, and inside this object I'm just going to say text. Basically this is just what we're going to be uh, displaying. We're going to be consuming in other components, so we're not doing anything big deal. So this default values that I've actually defined, I'm just going to put it right here, default values, and that is going to end that error. Then I'm going to go down right here and I'm going to create my actual provider component. So I'm just going to say export because I want to export it too, because this is going to be the wrapper for the target component that we want to consume this content provider. So I'm just going to say export const uh, pages provider. So this is going to be our provider, and then we're just going to write this function. Okay, so what is going to happen is that this component is actually going to take children, just like what we do in most cases. This children is actually, it actually needs a type. So basically, for some reasons, if you set the type right here, it does not work. So if I say the type is React Node, you see it's still shouting. So I'm just going to cut this out right here. Okay, and then I'm going to create an interface for it. Interface, and then I'm going to say pages context props. You can call it whatever you want. Then I want to actually set a type for the prop. The type here is going to be React Node. Okay, so I'm going to come back right here, and then I'm going to put the interface. I'm going to destructure this children from the uh, props, from the pages prop that I just created, and that will make that to go away. So now I can then return my I can then return a context actually. So what I want to do is that I'm actually going to return this pages provider. I mean the context, the pages that the context that I just created, which is the pages context, because I just created a context right here. Because I have created a context, so it will give me access to access the provider. So if I say dot, you can see I'm able to access different things. But now I want to access the provider, so I'm going to leave it this way. As you can see, there's an error message that says that value is missing. So I would have to create a value. I can say const value equals, this is going to also be an object. And then the value that I'm going to put inside here, inside this object, must be the same value that I've actually specified in my default values. So if I'm having 5 values inside this default, it has to be 5 inside this actual value too. So this is the actual value. But in this case, I have not actually created anything for real. This is just like a default, like the component, my pages provider component does not know about this text. So I would need to find a way to actually set this date. So I'm just going to say const text set text. Okay, and so set text, and then I'm gonna set the state. Okay, so I can set the state to this is my context provider. Okay, so now I'm gonna put this text as one of the value, and then yes, and then I'm going to pass the value as prop. I'm going to pass the object value as a prop, which is required to be able to finish this process. Okay, so now on this children, then I'm going to wrap it right here. What that means is that anything, any component that I wrap this context provider, I mean this pages provider with, would have access to all the values that I've specified. So I'm just going to say all the children in this would have access to all the values that I've specified in this provider, because this is actually a provider. It provides the context for the component. So right now I'm just trying to verify to see if I'm missing out on anything. As you can see, I have set my interface props, which is working right here. I have my default value, which is just one text, and I actually specify the actual uh, content of the text, which is this initially, and then this is the prop that I need to also specify to then pass into my provider, and then I wrapped it with my children. This is exporting. I'm exporting my provider, and I'm also exporting my context, which is perfect. And I'm gonna save. I think I'm good to go right now. So now the thing is, like, if you look at the way Next.js is actually, the architecture. If I'm actually going to wrap anything, that means I will probably have to wrap it in the root layout, and wrap this around with my provider. But I don't want to do that. I don't like wrapping something in the root. This is this, you can see this is a lot different from what React used to look like. So what I would like to do is that just to stay safe, I like to just go back inside the same app folder. I'm gonna create my own folder. I'm gonna call it pages. Okay. So because when you create something like this in Next.js will think that you are creating a route, but I do not want this to be a route. I just want to use it to arrange my files and my components. So to tell Next.js that this is not a route, you're going to actually surround it with parentheses. So I'm going to surround this. So once you surround this with parentheses, it means that this is not a route. So okay, this is not a route. So inside this, I will then move, this is my index page. This is my home page. I will then move this cut and then move it inside this page. Okay, and paste. Right. But because if you look at my website, it's still working. If you look at my page, it's still working. Okay. All right, because that is not a route. It's just saying it as an index, It's just like, I'm just rearranging it. But I just don't want a single page to be sitting right there because it looks strange. Each in Next.js, you have the route and then you have the page inside the route. Okay, so since this is not a route, I can still do the same thing. I can create another folder, wrap it in parentheses, and then call it landing page. Okay, just to tell Next.js that this is actually not a route. And then I can move this page inside this. Okay, so by default, Next.js would look for an index page, at the root level, which it must find. It must be actually named page. So, and as you can see, this is not the route. This is not the route. So we are still good. So inside this page, I want to create a layout. Okay. So I'm gonna create a layout. That's GSX, right? So I can close this landing page. I don't have any business with landing page for now. So I want to create a layout for this page, for these pages. So this pages is where all my routes would be, all my pages would be, okay? So I want to wrap the layout is just like a way, like a parent or a kind of wrapper or a kind of container that you actually use to define something that you want to be available in all your pages. So basically, I'm just going to say that I'm just going to create a normal, just like a regular layout. I'm just going to say const pages layout, pages layout equals this, and then we set to return a div. Okay, so we can return a div, and what do we? Oh, I'm returning a div, but it should actually be in a kind of a parenthesis. So I can do that. And so what do we do? We still pass a children argument right there. And then we need to set the interface. We need to set the type. Okay, so I'm just gonna set the type, and I'm just gonna say what's it called? Pages route. Pages. Sorry, pages props rather. Okay, so I'm just gonna say children, then that's going to be a React node, React node, right? So and then I'm going to destructure it right here. Oops. And I'm gonna destructure children from the pages props, right? And that settles that. Okay, so now I'm going to wrap all the components inside the pages folder. Yeah, so everything oops, that's not it. This is the objects actually. Right. That was a string, but now I need to wrap the object actually. That was a mistake. Okay, so right now what I'm doing right here is that I'm wrapping every component inside this pages folder with this layout. As you can see, everything inside it are these children, and now have been wrapped right here. So what I can do right now is that this my context provider that I've just made there, because I need to wrap this provider. Around something around a component if I actually want to use those values in there. So I'm going to wrap this folder of this provider around this layout component so that everything inside my pages would have access to all the values in this provider. So I'm going to go to my layout. Instead of wrapping it with a div, I can then wrap it with pages um, pages provider. Okay, and then so everything inside my pages, all the components inside my pages will then have access to all the values that I've specified inside my pages provided, which is a perfect use of use context. So I'm going to save, right? It looks like we're getting some error somewhere. Let me see what's going on in the real life. You are importing a component. Okay, I think I know what this problem is. So let's go back here. What component exactly are we talking about? Okay, I think this might be the component. So in Next.js, by default, all components are server side. So to make it a client side, you have to uh, specify that. Yeah, you have to explicitly state that it is a client component. Once you do that, and how you do that is just to write use client. And once I do that, that should solve my problem. Let me see. Cannot access the fault dot then on the side. You cannot touch into climate from a server company. You only pass the important name through. Okay, let me see what that means. Okay, I don't think I've exported this. So I need to export this, export default pages layout, right? Okay, so we're exporting that. What else do we need? Pages provider. Yeah, I think it should be good right now. Yeah. So now we have everything we need. So we have access to everything in this context, context right now. So we can go into any page that we have created inside our pages and begin to access our values. So the value that we have, the only value that we have here is just the text. Okay. So I can then go to my page and then I can the structure. What I need to first do is that I need to import use context because that is the way we can actually consume context in the context provider. So I'm actually going to import use context from React. What else do I need? Okay, I need to. Okay, so now I can go up here. I can say const. What's the name of the context? I'm actually going to start this with a lowercase so that it will not clash. So I can just say page context. So yeah, I'm going to page context equals use context. Okay, so use context will now ask me that what context are you trying to use? I will then now import the context that I'm trying to use. I will then now say I'm trying to use pages context, right? So I'm gonna import this. Then I'm gonna go back to use context. I'm now saying that well, I am trying to use pages context. Okay, now I have access to my page context. Um, that's I could call this pages, I could call it whatever. Yeah, now I have access to my pages context and I'm trying to consume the value of text inside it. So what I can do is that I can say I'm just going to destructure that. So I'm just going to say const text. I'm just going to destructure it from this pages context, right? And then I can then go right here. um Again, let me first console the blog. I could just put it right here straight up. Okay. I can then just put it right here, and then I can just use the text straight up. I save, and then see what's going on. On the flip side, as you can see, this is my context provider. I'm consuming it straight up, so I can go back to my context provider and add new values. I can say that my new value is now before you actually create any value, make sure you are adding it to your default value first. This is very important in TypeScript. It's not going to work without that. So basically, I can say username. It doesn't matter what I call it at the default value. So I'm just going to leave it blank. And then I need to create a username actually right here. So I'm just gonna say const username, um, const username. I can say set username. Oops, set username, and then the use state is going to be, even at this stage, I still don't know what the username is. So what I can do is that I can, oh my God, this thing is actually a blocker here. So what I can do is that I can actually set my username when the context load. I can say use effect. So I can then go back because I must actually write my hooks inside my component. Okay, this is already shouting because I just created username and I have not added it to the actual value right there. So, but my default value has it, but my actual value does not have it. So I have to say username. I have to add it there, and then that shaft is going to go away. And then how do I set a value for I could actually set a value for my username right here, but I just want to make things more a little bit complex for myself by trying, because this is what the real life app would actually do. You have to await some kind of value from the database before you can have access to your user information. So I'm just gonna say set username to Elish, okay, and then I can just make it run only once, and then yeah. So once the component mounts, we have access to the username, which is set to Elish. Then I can go back to my landing page, and I can still the structure the username. Okay, the username from the pages context, which I just set, and then I can say welcome. As a matter of fact, I think this should be at the top. Yep, I should put this at the top. I can just say welcome, welcome username, right? So I can then save, and then I can go back to my app. As you can see, welcome Elish. So I have actually properly consumed my context all the way from my provider, and every component that I create in this app would have access to all this context without any much code and all that. So this is a very perfect use case, and then it works fine, and it's gonna help you usually in your authentication and all that. So I see you in the next one. Thank you.